Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Greenland. What Greenland essentially about is we center on the character of John Garrity. He is your typical, structural engineer. He's living in Atlanta, Georgia. Everything seems to be going great. And then one day he receives this really strange, phone call where, him and his family have been selected for emergency sheltering, which is odd to him considering that they're hearing about this comet, this comet fragment that's, entering the Earth's atmosphere. It's supposed to just dissolve and, not really be a big deal, but it doesn't do that. It turns out to be far more serious. There are shockwaves around the area, and clearly it's going to have some significant damage all over Florida. And so basically John and his family have to now try to navigate the situation as best as they can and also try to survive and hope that they can still survive as a family. So Greenland overall, I was not very excited for this film, especially just looking at the cast, looking at who was involved. This to me just seemed like a very stereotypical sort of disaster film that we get a lot. It didn't really seem like anything that was going to be all that different. I mean, obviously Roland Emmerich's not behind or anything, but it certainly seemed like a film that he very much could be. So I really did not have that much hope for this film. But I finally did watch it, and I have to say, Greenland really surprised me. This is a much different film than I was expecting. It's far more grounded and serious, for sure, and definitely one of the better disaster films that I've seen in a long time. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. I will say right now, that is definitely one of the best elements of this film. I think the entire cast here, everyone does a really good job. I think all the performances are really impressive. But let's talk about Gerard Butler, because as much as I like to clown on him, he is an actor that I do respect. I do think he works in films like this, and I think he gives one of his best performances in a while in this film, because the performance he gives here is one that feels very sincere. John Garrity as a character, he doesn't feel like this badass. He's not someone that's, invincible in that way. He can't just, solve every problem. He clearly is impacted by this situation. He clearly is worried about what's going to happen. There's a lot of vulnerability with his character, and I think Butler taps into that very well. I really enjoyed what he was doing in this movie. I thought he gave a very, very convincing performance, and it's definitely one of his best in a while. He does go in and out with his accented points, but I can very much overlook that because of the fact that emotion-wise, I mean, he really did do a good job here, and I was really impressed by his performance. And same goes for Morena Baccarin, who, I mean, she's always stand out for me in anything that she's in, but especially in this film, I think she does a really good job at really just focusing on how chaotic this situation really is. You really do get the sense that Allison is someone that is not really ready to handle this situation, but she's trying to do it as swiftly as she really can. She's trying to do it as carefully as she really can, and I thought she definitely did do a really good job here. And the kid as well, Roger Dale Floyd, is very good in this movie. I was very impressed by his performance here. I thought that he actually gave a very good child performance. Nathan's not the kind of character that's just dumb. He actually is kind of smart, and I thought Floyd did a really good job with that. And the chemistry between these three, you really do buy them as a family, and because their performances are so strong, that's one of the reasons the movie is as strong as it is. Comes to the rest of the cast, I think everyone does do a really good job here. David Denman, I thought, was really good for what he had. Hope Davis, really just showing the lengths that people will go to in this type of situation. But also Scott Glenn is always great, and he's not in this movie very much, but when he's here, he gives a very strong performance, and I really did like what he ended up doing. So I thought all the acting was very strong here overall. The thing that impresses me the most, though, besides the acting, is Rick Roman Way's directing, because going into this film, I was not expecting much. I mean, this is the guy who has done the, Angel Has Fallen and Olympus Has Fallen. He's done those films, and because that, I just was not expecting him to take this very seriously, but he really does. And what I really appreciate about his directing in this film is that he's not so concerned about the action aspect. This is very much a family drama, and I really liked the way he ended up directing it here. It's very patient. It's far more careful with what he does usually, and I really did like that. I felt actual passion put into this. I felt actual care put into this, and I thought his directing was just very impressive here. Yes, he does eventually lean into the more disaster type elements, but that's not his focus here in this film. He really is trying to tell a very grounded story, and I thought his directing worked very well. But the writing by Chris Sparling is also really good to this film. Like I said, this film takes itself way more seriously than I was really expecting, and I think that's really the best aspect of this film, is the whole survival aspect of everything. You really do feel like you are with this family, especially in the first hour. Things are very tense. I mean, the family gets separated very early, but they have to also go through this situation in a different way. You have Morena Baccarin and her son. They're trying to, get through, they're trying to get through this situation. They're trying to do what they can to, reach the gate and things like that. And, I think they did a good job with, and then meanwhile, Gerard Butler, he's kind of off doing his own thing, but it never feels like it's overstuffed. Like, it feels like this is a very realistic situation. This is how this would potentially happen if something like this were to go down one day, because something like this could very well happen at some point, and I think the film recognizes that. They recognize that this is not fun. This is not something that's a fun event. This is something that is tragic. This is something that would throw the entire world into chaos, and they portray it in a very sincere manner, which was not really what I was expecting from this film. The film spends a lot of time on the trauma that this family is going through, the way that this family is reacting to it, because the family is already very much struggling, and this is kind of like bringing them back together in a sense, and I really did like seeing that. I thought the screenplay here was very strong in that way. When things are happening to these characters, you really do feel it. Nathan, especially as a character, is not a dumb kid. He's not the kid that causes all the worst possible things to happen. He actually is a bit more savvy than you really are expecting. He's able to get out of situations very well. He recognizes when he's in peril, and I really like seeing that. Sure, he is diabetic, and there are points where Morena Baccarin's character has to get insulin for him, but he's not the kind of kid character that is helpless. He is a lot more again, amiable in many situations, and I was not expecting that from his character, but it made him that much more, I thought, I thought as a character, it made him that much more, rootable as a character. It made you care about him that much more, and I thought they did a really good job with him. He's a lot more sharp than you really would expect. He's able to get himself out of situations very easily, and it makes him, I think, that much more relatable as a character, and I really did appreciate that overall. So I thought they did a really good job at putting you into this situation, and the film does, like I said, take a lot of time to focus on the family themselves, and I think they do a good job with that. And when they start to dive a bit more into the disaster elements, I think the film does earn it. I think the film very much does earn them going there, and I think it does a pretty good job with that. So yeah, I enjoyed the screenplay more than I really was expecting to in this film, and I think it's definitely one of the better aspects of it for sure. The cinematography is also really good. Again, it felt like the budget was not nearly as cheap as you really are expecting, and again, the film isn't really utilizing on its VFX. Yes, it's there, but it's, again, more focused on the town itself, and the way that the movie is filmed, a lot of it is actually handheld, and it really just adds to the chaos and the, again, just the thrillingness of this situation, and I thought they did a really good job at showing that here. So I definitely enjoyed the cinematography a lot. The VFX itself, it's not the best for sure when it does get in there, but I've definitely seen worse, and I don't really think it was all that bad, so I did appreciate the cinematography here. I thought the score as well was definitely really good by David Buckley. He added to the intensity of the situation. I thought he did a good job with that. And the editing, I thought this film, again, was very well paced. I think for the most part, I think the way that the film spent so much time on what we actually wanted them to spend time on, I thought was a really good decision here. And I definitely enjoyed the editing in this film. Getting into some of my flaws with Greenland, because it's definitely not a perfect movie, I'd say the thing that really does bring this film down are the characters that are populating it. There just isn't really a lot to them. You care about this family because they're in a very realistic situation, and they're portraying this in a far more sincere manner than you really would expect them to with this kind of premise. But there's really not much to them as characters. John is kind of just the regular sort of hero. He's your everyman in a sense, and there just really isn't a lot to him. He's having some relationship issues with his wife, but that's kind of it. There's really nothing to his wife at all, other than, again, they're just having relationship issues. And like I said, Nathan is far more inquisitive than you really are expecting him to be, but aside from that, there just really isn't a lot to their characters at all. Also, David Denman and Hope Davis in the film, as much as I did enjoy them because they really do represent just how manic people can get in this situation. I mean, just their characters are insane. It really don't serve as much of a purpose in this film, I think. I think they're really just here to create tension, and I wish they would have done a little bit more with them. And my only other flaw, I will say, is that after a while, once we get through, them going through the gates and things like that, and, the family meeting back up, it does start to get a bit repetitive. There's really only so much you can do here, and that's why I feel like there needed to be a little bit more character to some of them, just so I cared a bit more about what was going on, because I definitely did care, but I feel like I would have cared that much more if they would have delved into a bit. The ending itself, though, I really didn't dislike. I thought that it did make sense for this film, and I didn't really have too much of an issue with it. Overall, Greenland is just a big surprise for me. This film is much better than I really was expecting. I think what could have been a very throwaway and very silly disaster film, it's handled in a much more serious light, and I think it does what we've wanted disaster films to do for a while. It features some really strong performances. It has some surprisingly very effective cinematography, a really good story overall, and just in terms of disaster films, it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's just much closer to what I expect them to be. It's less of a disaster film and more of a family drama, and it really is all the better because of it. Like I said, Greenland for me, I definitely liked a lot more than I expected to, and I am going to give Greenland overall a B-. For all of our guys, in my review of Greenland, and once you guys saw this overall, if your thoughts on it, we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.